Hello, everybody. Perry wanted to stop in at the top of the episode to let you know about something that I forgot to mention in the main episode. So last year, we did a fundraiser for Movember, and this year, I wanted to do the same thing, and things got really busy, and I started to think maybe we're not going to be able to make it happen. But here we are, and we're actually going on for our second year with our charity campaign for Movember. So for folks who don't know what Movember is, it is an organization that raises awareness for men's health and men's mental health. They have been incredibly supportive, not just of myself, but also the support that we have given them through the podcast as well. Last year, we had an initial goal of $500, and we raised over $800 by the end of the fundraiser itself. So this year, I wanted to do this again because it's an extremely important organization to me, and also something that has always been important to my journey, to who I am as a person. And so throughout the month of November, once again, and potentially throughout the rest of the year, depending on how much traction we might get, I wanted to do another fundraiser for Movember. So, I am going to be implementing some gifts, some giveaways, some prizes as well for those who donate. I'm thinking what we're going to do is and I'm not sure how it's going to work just yet. Maybe it's whoever donates the most, or like a random drawing. I don't really know. But I was thinking doing like a private tasting with somebody who donates. So yeah, I'm going to iron out some of those details, but there is going to be a link in the description below for this episode where you can find the link to Movember, so you can also find our page where you can donate. Please tell your friends, please tell your family. It's an unbelievably great organization, one that I have such a great relationship with. They actually, after we welcomed our daughter into the world, I reached out to Tony, my buddy at Movember, and I said, hey, I'm considering doing this again. Here's a little life update. And he said, here are some tools for you as a new dad. Tools to help you mentally get through this, and they've been extremely helpful. And the fact that he just, without even thinking about it, said, here you go. It just means a lot to me that these people are doing what they're doing. They are showing support for men's health, men's mental health, and the mental health side of it, as we were talking about last year, it's something that a lot of people don't normally talk about. So, Movember. We're going to be raising money for him again this year. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. I'm also really excited for you guys to listen to this week's episode. Swan and I had a great time recording, and I also had a great time recording the interview with Ken Lewis from New Riff. So without further ado, let's go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I am your host, Perry, and with me...
Swan!
Oh, that sounds like a bad knock-knock joke.
Yeah, I know. I just felt like interrupting. Yeah.
Remind me to tell you my new favorite knock-knock joke once we get done with the episode.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I'm going to pause it and go ahead and tell you.
Hit me with it.
I just told him the joke. I didn't want to record it because it's it's a little uncouth.
It's a suspect, yeah.
Man, what a solid start to this week's episode. Ooh. Hey, if you're new to the show, welcome for the first time ever. If you're not yet, please subscribe to the show. New episodes come out every Wednesday. You can also become a patron of the show. Patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. I can't believe I did that. Should we start out? Nah, we're not going to start over. Let's just keep going.
We're too far now. We're too far in.
Maybe I'll tell the joke on a live stream.
There you go.
Oh, by the way, I'm starting my live streams again this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thursday nights on YouTube. So it's going to be the day after this episode comes out. I don't know exactly what time it's going to be just yet because the schedule got shifted around when I announced I was going on hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm going to figure that out.
TBD.
I will post it on the socials, on the medias. I'll let you know. And, yeah, I'm excited to get back into it. I'm going to be doing them every other week, though, for a little while. Mm-hmm. But it's just going to be another way to make a little bit more income, while I'm the only one working. So,
yep.
Remember, patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. Anyway. Hey, we've got a really good interview that I got to do with the founder of New Riff, Ken Lewis, which is coming out here. Well, it's coming up, not coming out. It's out by this point, now that you're listening to it. But it's coming up later in the episode. And before we get to that, though, we've got some news we're going to talk about. Got some TTB labels, but we always start the show out with Flying Blind.
We do.
And this is not really a true Flying Blind, but this is a sample that was given to us by Fred Gilbert, who is one of the listeners of the show.
Good old Fred.
He's a good dude. He likes to bestow some gifts upon us from time to time. Also, I forgot to mention, the reason that the New Riff interview is coming out this week is because we went to New Riff.
We did.
This past Friday. And boy, howdy, did we pick a barrel.
We picked a barrel, yes.
We picked the first official This Is My Bourbon Podcast barrel pick. Curtis was going to join us this evening to talk about it as well, but he got wrapped up with some work things, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So instead, we're going to be talking about that a little bit. We're not going to divulge too many secrets about
just
it.
as a blanket statement, we won't be releasing the name
or tasting notes. Yeah.
Or the proof.
Well, the proof is because we don't even know.
Yeah.
Did you proof it?
No.
Okay.
No.
I have no idea.
I have no clue.
I truly have no idea what this proof is. I've kind of made guesses.
I
talked
think
about
it
it a little bit.
On the lower end of some of it, but we'll see.
We will see, indeed.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to do it with the Nashville Bourbon Society. We announced this back when we did our antique collection episode. And it was...
Boy, it was rough.
It was one heck of an experience.
Yeah, it was hard because, I was always under the impression... By the way, this is my first barrel pick I've ever been on.
That is true, yeah.
I was
both yours and Curtis's.
Yeah, Kurt and I were kind of under the impression that, you would have kind of a unanimous winner, right? You kind of come into it and you'd be like, oh, this one and this one are good, but this one, it's special. We had two of those in ours. One was special New Riff. One was special Outlier.
Yeah.
And we were just like, what do we go with?
What are we going to do? And we had I think we spent more time debating than we did actually drinking.
We did, yes.
The samples
we did.
got.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I'm excited for everyone to try it.
I am too. Pre-orders have already come and gone. I think there might be a few bottles left unclaimed.
Yes.
But I'm going to wait until we see what the final count is on that before we say too much about that. So stay tuned. If you missed out, there might be the opportunity for something, but no promises just yet. But regardless, I just want to say thank you to Adam Terry, everybody over at the Nashville Bourbon Society for including us in this. More picks will definitely come in the future. I'm thinking about reworking the Patreon a little bit to have a tier or two that are specifically catered towards doing barrel picks.
Yeah.
So I'm formulating those ideas. I'm working on them. I'll probably have that sorted out in the next couple of weeks. But we, of course, want to do more barrel picks. That's something that we are much more interested in pursuing the further that we get into this. And, I mean, the sky's the limit, I guess. Mm-hmm. So we'll find out. We'll find out, you and me together, Swan.
We're gonna do it together.
But in the meantime, I never actually told everybody what this sample was. This is Sam Houston 14 year. It's 98 proof. This is a wildly different nose from the things we just got done drinking.
Yup, it is.
It's kind of piney.
It is kind of piney. It's kind of butterscotchy.
Uh-huh. A little bit of mint. Just kind of sitting on the top of the nose, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. This is very fall.
Yeah. It's clearing out my sinuses.
Yeah. Where's this sourced from? Is it MGP?
Yeah?
Yeah, it's
I want
reminded
to say
me
so.
quite a bit of what we had last week, that Desert Jewel.
Oh, I forgot about that. It was like forever ago that happened. I see what you're talking about, though. That makes sense. Well,
They just have a way of kind of just punching through the nose. Ooh, that was a note I was not expecting.
oh, that's buttery. Oh,
It's buttery, a little meaty.
it started buttery.
Mm-hmm.
But it changed midway through, didn't it?
Yeah, it's very savory.
Uh-huh. It's extremely savory. It definitely reminds me of that smoke wagon now.
Mm-hmm.
It's really minty on the back end, too. Interesting.
I'm not mad. I'm just kind of lost for words.
Yeah, I know. It's not my favorite thing in the world.
No, it's kind of like a steak that you've taken the time to baste with butter over and over again, but then you put like a crap load of rosemary on. It's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all, but it's it's just kind of fine, I guess.
Yeah, it's the Willy Wonka version of the gum, but for steaks. It's a full meal.
What was the name of that gum? Doesn't matter. Whatever. We'll get letters.
Yeah.
Write in. Tell us at my bourbon pod. Well, I guess we kind of already talked a little bit about what we've been drinking recently. But Swan, what you been drinking recently?
Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye. I've had some more of that. I've had a lot of New Riff, including our pick. But I actually, leading up to the... Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I have shared this
Yes.
quite a bit as well.
Yes.
But I'm holding up my bottle of our pick. It's just a 200 ml sample bottle, and it's got probably 50 mils left in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I made a point leading up to the pick to try New Riff at different stages.
Uh-huh.
So I had a bottle of New Riff, and I've done this with a couple of distilleries where it was their first release, and I compared that to two of the picks that I have, both of which were actually Nashville Bourbon Societies, so that I can kind of figure out where we've been as far as like flavor.
Yeah.
Throughout.
Sorry, I had to turn the heater off. I was getting a little sweaty.
You're good. I just wanted to see kind of where we were at flavor-wise across the board. So then when we got to the pick, I could say, this is what the previous ones kind of had going on for me. This is what original New Riff kind of had going on for me, because I'm a sucker for an outlier if it's good.
Yeah. I did the same thing kind of the night before, but I went more specific. I tried both of the Nashville Bourbon Society's picks back to back. Old Town Road and Riff Busters. And then I broke Riff Busters, back out for Halloween night.
Such a good Halloween pour.
It's perfect. I feel like there's something else I'm forgetting about.
Oh, your Knob Creek pick.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I told you in chat earlier in the week, early last week, that I picked up a new Knob Creek pick from Liquor Barn. It's called like Freddy No Number 8.
Yes.
Which means that Liquor Barn went up or maybe they just got the nose to pick all these barrels.
Yeah, maybe. Or they cloned Freddy No at least 8 times. I like this option better. And then they distilled him as a person into a bottle.
There's still some left if you want to try it at some point.
Yeah.
I told you how good it was. I mean, you don't have to have it right now. Or at all if you don't want.
I'll finish up this Sam Houston. I actually
Yeah,
like
take
this
your
quite a
time.
bit.
Take your time.
Yeah.
You told me you were going to go light tonight, so.
Yeah, going kind of light tonight. I'm gonna be taking just a quick little break from drinking, and I'll probably just drink on episodes for a little bit.
You're known to do that from time to time.
Yeah, I just know that when Christmas rolls around, there's gonna be no stopping me. I'm just gonna have a pour with dinner and something to warm
and
up.
Dessert.
And January is gonna be like, man, it's cold outside. And I have
man.
vaulted ceilings, so my house is gonna be cold, and good old bourbon coat sounds pretty good.
Absolutely.
So I'm taking a little break before we get into that kind of weather.
Indeed. Well, Swan, shall we get into some of the news?
Yes.
Well, shall we start with the saddest news?
Go ahead.
Sean Connery passed away.
He did.
That was wild. I know it's kind of odd that we bring up Sean Connery on a bourbon podcast, but he was a bourbon and whiskey drinker in his day, and you actually have a pretty significant connection to, well, at least his name.
Yeah. I was named after Sean Connery.
Excuse me. You were. You and your brother.
Me and my brother. Yeah. As a collective, I guess. My dad's clock and number at work was 007. So, I don't know. I guess that the names were also family names, but he just thought it was great that he could make that combination work because my brother's name is Connor. So
Yeah.
Sean Connery.
Perfect. Apparently he had dementia as well, and he passed in his sleep, which is
Best way to go.
perfect. But yeah, man, it's a bummer. But he was 90 years old. I mean, it's not like he was.
Oh no,
He lived a very long life and did a heck of a lot of stuff.
he did.
So I mean, yeah, it's sad, but it's nice to be able to celebrate him in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch The Rock. Go watch The Rock. I've been meaning to get around to watching that one in the past few days. So, yeah, let's move on. Asking you this, not knowing what's coming up, but have you seen what happened to Beam Suntory this past week?
No.
They got fined $19.6 million in a bribery case with the Indian government, actually.
What'd they do?
Well, basically what it gets down to is that it was all about distribution, and they were trying to, of course, make some more money with it, and the Department of Justice and Trade Commissions all caught wind of it, and they went down hard, man. So, that's wild. I mean, they of course went with the excuse me, the whole we're committed to doing the best and putting our best foot forward and yada yada yada, but still, you freaking you did something pretty nasty there.
Yeah.
Beam Suntory. So hopefully it doesn't reflect poorly on the whiskeys.
I'm still gonna drink most Beam products.
Beam 8-star.
I said most.
Yeah, that's one of them.
No, I'm not drinking that.
That's not what you told me when we went to Party Source this past weekend.
Okay, that's fair.
We'll move on to some lighter news as well. Kentucky now apparently has almost 10 million barrels of bourbon aging.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Significant amount.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So this kind of breaks down. The numbers break down a little bit more than that. The total number of just bourbon barrels, 9.2 million, and the number of barrels of bourbon filled last year, 2.1 million. Previous high total was 9.1 million last year, and before that, it was 8.7 million in 1968. Crazy, man. Crazy. Yeah. I don't know if that's a 95% of all bourbon in the world is made in Kentucky is still true, but it sure does seem like it's a really significant amount one way or another. So
there is 2.23 or 2.24 barrels per Kentucky citizen.
2.24 barrels per person.
Per Kentucky resident, yeah.
Fantastic.
That's insane.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Where's my barrel?
Yeah, right?
I want 2.2 barrels sent to my house.
I would do it just like the olden days,
Mm-hmm.
where I would just tap it and just pour it right out of the barrel
Yes.
into my Glencairn, and then just be happy as a clam.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do. I would buy a barrel of, like, Russell's, just put it in the corner.
Could you imagine if everyone got sent those barrels, but you had no choice in which ones you got? So, like, Chad gets
Ozzy
sent, like...
Tyler.
Yeah, Chad gets sent, like, 2 Ozzy Tyler barrels.
Town branch.
Yeah, and then... I don't know. I get sent, like, new make that just hit the barrel yesterday. But then some person that doesn't even drink bourbon is like, well, this one's been sitting at Buffalo Trace for 20 years in a temperature-controlled environment. I don't know what to do with this.
I don't know what
There you go.
W.L. Weller means.
Yeah.
That'd
Oh,
be
man.
pretty great.
That would be...
I would not be upset to live in that reality. I'll say that much. Speaking of Buffalo Trace, by the way, they have expanded the Freddy's Old Fashioned Soda lineup.
They have, yeah.
Yeah, they've got a ginger beer and a ginger ale now. Good stuff. I am really ready for them to come out with like a tribute to the Johnson family bottle, though.
That would be nice.
I feel like that's got to be the next big release from them. Like big significant release that is new to their lineup.
I don't want it to be a tribute bottle. I want it to be its own new line.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I mean, kind of in the same vein of, you know, when Blanton's was alive, and Colonel Blanton, excuse me, was alive, and he produced one that was named after himself, and the same with Elmer T. Lee. Goodness, I cannot speak tonight. Having trouble with those L's.
Yeah. It'd be nice, too, to just see him, you know, say, I'm going to go pick, you know, a Stag Junior, E.H. Taylor, and a single, like a foolproof Weller, and I'm going to put them in the gift shop. Why not? Could you imagine if he did like a yearly just launch of those? That'd be insane.
It's called Freddy's Friday.
Yeah. Every Friday.
They would burn that place to the ground.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about when I say they, too.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not me or you.
no.
No, I might try once and then never go again.
Yeah, I would be interested in that. But that would be me sending an email to Buffalo Trace saying, hey, can we get samples of these?
Yep.
Hey, speaking of Buffalo Trace again, even though we never stopped the first time,
Yeah.
I think we might have mentioned this a little bit. I'm not entirely sure. But there's a new last drop coming out from Buffalo Trace. 1980. Where is when it was made, aged for 20 years, and then was left in a stainless steel vat or different vats for another 20 years. And it's being bottled at 90 proof.
What's your thought on that?
It's a lot of money. It's $4,600 per bottle. Let me say this. I made an effort to request a sample of it.
Oh, yeah?
And I got told that those samples had already been spoken for.
Yeah.
So there were actual samples that people got sent of this. $4,600 bourbon
Yeah.
for free. And we were not one of them.
Anyways.
I just really wanted a sample.
I mean, who wouldn't want a sample
Yeah,
of that?
of course. It's fine. 240 bottles available worldwide. And like I said, $4,600. It's just so much money.
If it makes you feel better, I think those are the ones that are also coming with an airplane bottle of it, so
They
you
are.
can kind of leave your fancy $4,600 bottle to the side and try
Excuse me.
that little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is also, you and I talked about this on our way back from New Riff, I think. Or maybe it was on the way too. I don't know. There's a new bootleg series from Heaven's Door coming out.
They are.
Volume 2.
Packaging, beautiful.
Gorgeous.
It's the one with the green leather, book binding.
Book box thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. 15-year Tennessee bourbon finished in Jamaican rum barrels. And this is a little pricey as well. $500. But there's about 3,000 bottles out there. Look, somebody's named Perry in this article.
I would love to be an individual with disposable income.
Yes.
Right about now.
Yeah. There's lots of... I feel like this is the year for expensive LEs.
It is, yeah.
Am I wrong?
Well, I feel like somebody's goal was like, let's get a little more Scotch territory in pricing.
Yeah, sure.
And, I can't blame them. But you're also not putting the same time investment
No.
you are with Scotch. It's hard for me to look at Scotch and be like, that's $1,000. Oh, but it's also 30 years. And then see something else that's like, you've been taxed even less. And somehow you're the same price.
We've talked about it before. It all has to do with the boom and the market and even what secondary is dictating at this point. But to be honest, though, I don't think that this is one of those products that would be directly influenced by something like the secondary market. I just think that this is... I think this is a little tone deaf. Pardon the pun.
Yeah. But I mean, we've seen that same bottle of bootleg series sit at Total Wine for how long?
Oh, months.
Yeah.
Months and months and months. Because the last one was announced last year. Actually, last November, almost a year ago. But it was also $500.
And there are some bottles at that price point will sell. Like the Kentucky All Dry State, I watched it get set in the case, and I saw the first person walk up to it, and they bought it on the spot. Mm-hmm. It's gone. Beautiful case. Arguably to some people, the actual bourbon itself is worth it. And the bootleg series is kind of just like, I don't know if you got enough reputation for this. Bottle's beautiful, but come on.
I mean, it's not like Bob Dylan's known as a bourbon drinker.
No, not really.
And I think that's what I'm kind of getting at with this is that it doesn't read like something that an aficionado would want to release. It doesn't read like something that he's had a lot of investment putting his own stamp on. Mm-hmm. And instead, it just feels like outsourced work. Kind of in the same way that Sweeten's Cove did.
Yeah, Sweeten's Cove and then the Woodford Baccarat cognac finish.
Yeah. It all just seems very out of touch. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate because I do want to try a 15-year-old bourbon finished in 30-year-old rum casks. Yeah. That's something I want to try. I'm not going to deny that. But I'm not drinking that and going, this is Bob Dylan's whiskey. You know what I mean? Like I
feel closer to Bob Dylan drinking this.
I know the man on a more personal level. No, I just don't feel like this has anywhere near the same impact that even like Long Branch does. And I think that Long Branch is the extreme in this situation because of how in-depth Matthew McConaughey went with its creation.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We've talked about celebrity whiskeys a bunch. That we did an episode on it, I think maybe this year even. So
yeah.
Go and listen to that instead.
There was a new...
Oh, yeah, the New Pursuit bourbon.
New Pursuit bourbon. Yeah. Good on them, man. They said that's been a year in the working. I know that's hard.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're pulling up some of the info on it, right?
No, actually, I was looking for something else. There's that new... I forget what it's called. It's a new... it looks just like the Sweeten's Cove bottle. Let me just put it out. It was the Rutledge bottle. What's that one called?
Oh, Blue something. We talked about it last week.
Yeah, no, it's finally hitting stores.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
For just about as much money as we thought it was going to be and what we talked about last week.
Yeah. Packaging is confusing to me. It looks like Sweetens Cove and Rivulet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That like pecan flavored something or other.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll talk about a couple of releases as well that will actually segue nicely into the interview. There are a few New Riff bottles that are either out or will be out, despite some issues that New Riff might have had on the Friday of the release.
We're not going to go too far into that one.
And no, not for us to discuss.
I don't think their website was ready to handle the request.
Oh no.
No.
Anybody who tried to get something from New Riff on Friday, you know the pain.
It didn't matter if you were tier 1 or not.
Suck it, Adam Terry. Anyway. New Riff has a winter whiskey. It's a bottled and bond bourbon. It is really, really interesting. 65% corn, 20% malted oats, 7% pale ale malt, 5% steel cut raw oats, and 3% chocolate malt.
All right.
The distillery says it's reminiscent of a chocolate oatmeal stout. Really interesting. Really, really interesting here. This is coming off of the what was it? The Backsetter, as well as the Balboa Rye. Maltsters. Yeah, we actually are about to talk about the Maltsters here in just a second. We talked about the TTV labels for the Maltsters way back when. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so there are 2 malted products coming out or that are kind of out from New Riff. One's a rye, one's a bourbon, 65% corn, 30% malted rye. What? This is a very confusing way that they've written this. Wait. This doesn't make any sense. Why did they write this way? I'm going to read to you exactly how Whiskey Advocate wrote this.
Let's do it.
65% corn bourbons each include a malted grain in the mash bill. One with 30% malted rye, the other with 18% malted wheat, plus 10% unmalted wheat and 7% dark wheat.
I think I went brain dead for a second.
I know, right? Also, I apologize. They're both bourbons. They're not. There's not one bourbon, one rye. I messed that up. I apologize.
Oh, man.
But this is actually 5 years old. This
Yeah,
is one of the oldest New Riff products that are on the market at the moment. You've got something pulled up as well that I forgot totally about that we need to talk about.
We do.
You ready for this? Mm-hmm. You tell them, Swan. Then.
Wilderness Trail is putting out a new rye.
They are. And Swan, where did people first hear about this new rye coming out?
I mean, there was a podcast talking about it. Might have been
all the way back in February.
Might have been us.
Might have been a scoop.
Yeah,
hot scoop.
It does have a name, Settler Select.
Does.
Which I don't think we had initially.
No, we did not. But we knew what it was. We knew what it was going to be, what its purpose was.
But this is going to be Wilderness Trail's approachable rye.
Yes.
So there's a lot of rye drinkers and bourbon drinkers that still thought their rye was kind of spicy, which, depending on the pick of it, it is. It is hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is definitely a warm your chest, it's cold outside style rye. This one's going to be one that's probably going to be a little easier to maybe put in a cocktail, drink straight, that kind of thing. So that's interesting to see that they're doing that.
Yeah, and they had said that they wanted to put out a rye that would be used not exclusively for, but was kind of more catered towards bartenders. Something that they could use in cocktails
Which
too.
is smart, because look at what
absolutely.
Old Forester did.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
and I think that this kind of feels like it might be in direct contest. What am I trying to say?
Contest?
Maybe? I don't know. They're trying to compete. That's what it was. Direct competition with Bullet.
Oh, okay, like the Bullet Rye.
Yeah. Because Bullet's rye is the best-selling rye in the world. Mm-hmm. And it's a 95.5 MGP rye.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is their own product. They're trying to put it out for bartenders and people who go to bars. Mm-hmm. Not that, many people are going to bars right now.
No, but I mean, I think there's been a huge jump in people doing home cocktails.
Absolutely. Myself included.
Yeah. So, I mean, get some of this, little Eli Mason.
100%. How about a couple of TTB labels, and then we're going to throw it over to the interview.
Let's do it.
Speaking of Sam Houston, I'm really killing it with the transitions this week.
Yeah.
15-year-old, 103 proof, sourced from somewhere in Bardstown. So I'm guessing
Barton.
Yeah, it definitely is. 74% corn, 18% rye, 8% malted barley.
Yeah.
That's Barton's mash bill. So like I said, 15 years old, 103 proof. Interested in trying it, I guess. I don't know. I like the 12-year-old Barton. Or 1792, excuse me.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, well, we're having Sam Houston right now.
We are.
Or I am, at least.
Well, I
And-
finished mine.
Yeah, this is a 14-year. I'm curious about the proof. I'd like to see an extra 10 proof points on it because I know it's there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it's great. It's just hard to approach at that price.
Yeah.
They're making a name for themselves, though, because the first release I laughed at, and I'm drinking it now, and I'm like, I get it.
Yeah, for sure. And last but not least, the newest Jack Daniel's Tennessee Tasters selection. It's called the Twin Blend. It's a blend of straight Tennessee whiskey and straight Tennessee rye whiskey.
So they're doing kind of a forgiven.
Kinda, yeah. 107 proof. They selected 50 barrels of their Tennessee whiskey and rye, all with barrel entry date of May 19th, 2014. And yeah, I'd try it. I'd give it a shot or two.
Give it a whirl.
Give it a thought. I'll think about it.
Yeah.
And then nothing else.
You mean nothing to me.
Nah, you don't. Anyway, so we are going to go ahead and throw it over to my interview with Ken. I really enjoyed getting to sit down and chat with him. We did, of course, spend a little bit of time talking about Ian. There's no way I couldn't bring Ian up.
What did he think about Ian? I've not listened to this just yet.
Oh, he was all about it. And what's funny, too, is that repeatedly, and you guys will hear this, too, in just a second, we would be talking about our enthusiasm for New Riff. And he would keep saying things like, people like yourself and Ian. I was like, this is fabulous.
Ian, this one's for you, buddy.
If nobody else, it's for Ian.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to throw it over to the interview. We're going to be back at the back end of the episode to wrap up with tips and bits and all our plugs, but we'll see you in just a second. I am extremely excited to welcome our next guest to the podcast. We've been working on getting this together for just a little bit. And thankfully, it's finally come to fruition. Please welcome to the show, Ken, the president of New Riff.
Yep.
And welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. It's from my perspective, it's worth waiting for to be with you guys.
Well, we really appreciate it. So, in true New Riff spirit, I'm starting out with the original run of the New Riff Bottled and Bond from 2014. And that was distilled in 2014, and I'll taste through a couple other ones as well. But what's really exciting about this for me is that we are actually going to be coming up next month to New Riff to do our very first podcast pick, which we're just over the moon about. It's with it's in conjunction with the guys at the Nashville Bourbon Society. They reached out to us and asked if we wanted to split a barrel, and we just said absolutely. We 100% want to do that. With as much love as we've had for New Riff over the past few years, I mean, there was no way that we couldn't do this. So we're really excited to come up and pick a barrel. But
Cool.
just kind of wanted to get into this by starting with telling us who you are and how you got into the bourbon world, the whiskey world, as it were. So I'm going to turn it over to you for just a few.
Sure, but I'll certainly give you the short story. So if you want any amplification, you'll have to ask for it. But
I'm good with questions, so I can do
okay,
that.
good. Well, I think what's interesting, one of the interesting takes on New Riff is I'm the owner of New Riff as well as the CEO. And the way I got into this was I've made my entire career in the alcoholic beverage industry. So I actually, from the age of 24, for 38 years, I was a retailer, a liquor store owner, if you will. And at one point in Kentucky, and I grew up in Louisville, and my first 3 stores, ultimately it was 4 stores, were in Louisville. And then I entered the Northern Kentucky market. And ultimately I decided that being a chain operator wasn't my thing. I like being much more hands-on and personal. And chains are great and they're important, but ultimately they're a compromise. And it's just how well you can execute the compromise. And I wanted to go for it all the time. So I deliberately kept back to a single store. And that store was the Party Source, which is a little bit famous around the country.
Absolutely.
It's actually physically the largest single store in the United States. And so I operated that for 20-something years. And I had a 38-year career as a retailer. So I was also the spirits buyer for the Party Source as a single store owner. And I clearly, in Kentucky, right next to Cincinnati, but in Kentucky, and I clearly saw the bourbon boom happening right in front of my face. And between me and Jay Arisman, who was my specialty spirits buyer and is now my co-founder, he's not a co-owner, but my co-founder of New Riff and works for me and with me today. We got the wild hair idea back, I don't know, maybe about 2010, 2011 of maybe, no one in Northern Kentucky, a la Greater Cincinnati, was opening a microbrewery or a micro distillery or even let alone one our size. And, why maybe we should get into this. And I got pretty far into the concept of doing it. We were still, I think, reasonably early. I don't think it's something you could do today, given the competitive nature of it, of the industry and what's going on. But we were early enough, I think, to get in. And it became a big project. And I got far enough into it before I ultimately fatally realized that because of the 3-tier system, if I wanted to follow through and actually did this project, I would have to divest the Party Source. I couldn't be a retailer and a manufacturer with our 3-tier system, which I'm sure you understand.
Yes, of course.
And, I thought there was ways to get around it or a family member or whatever, but ultimately we were too big and too visible. And we were going to have to play strictly by the rules. So I made a choice, a Sophie's choice, as it were, and I decided to sell the Party Source. And I'm very proud that I sold it to my employees. So it's an employee stock ownership plan. They own 100% of the Party Source. They own it to this day. They're doing very well. And there's, maybe 50 families, in the next 10, 20 years are going to have a very, very, very big boost for their retirement because of that. So I'm very proud of it. And I got into the distillery, and we opened in 2014, and it's been quite a project. It's become a much bigger project than I ever anticipated, for better or for worse. And the nature of distilling is that it's a gift to the next generation. And I'm older, and I fully realize that in a way that they were just words before, because you keep making investments, you keep planning to do things 4, 6, 8, 10 years down the road, build rick houses and so forth. And it's all going to really come together, for the next generation, whether it's my family, we're going to stay family owned, or my employees, just like the Party Source employees.
What was the one thing that you kind of weren't expecting that got thrown at you once this all came together? Because at some point, of course, you are looking at it and going, well, this isn't an overnight investment. This is definitely going to take time, as you were saying. But in the process of creating this brand and creating your product, what shocked you the most about it? What hit you the hardest?
Sure. To do this right, to make great whiskey, and our goal, and we're not bashful about announcing it, and we may never get there, but our goal is very ostensibly, very visibly, to become one of the great small distilleries of the world. Mm-hmm. It was never about making money. We're not trying to grow in order to sell out to one of the global companies, which, Copper and Kings just got sold recently.
Right.
A year or two ago. It happens monthly at this point, and that. You keep up with the industry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No interest in that at all. We're long-term, going to do it. We're going for the brass ring. And, in order to do that, it is the continuing capital investment and the continuing deferred gratification is what has surprised me the most. I think I understood it intellectually, but until you live it, until you watch the cash and you do all these financial projections and you look and you're still going years and years and years in advance to really do it the right way. It does become a labor of love, and it's something I think we can be very proud of. But that's what has shocked me, that, and maybe overall, just being the first time in manufacturing, this is a little naive, but I was surprised initially at the level of maintenance that's required.
Sure.
How expensive it is to keep all this equipment up and running and so forth. But
right. So in your initial product, and we can talk about OKI as well in a moment, but your initial product with New Riff under that brand was a bottled and bond product, and we first tried that in 2018. I remember trying it for the first time and just really, there's a sense of awe that kind of happens every now and then with a 4-year-old product where you're not expecting it to taste as fully aged as it does. And I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but I really am a fan of just how full-bodied this 4-year-old 100 proof bourbon turned out in its initial run. And as I'm still kind of sipping on it now too, I'm revisiting some of those moments, some of those memories and flavors from tasting it initially. But what was it about bottled and bond that attracted you, or that was attractive to you rather, as you were setting up this brand?
Again, we're different. Our objectives are different. We're interested in quality, and that's not just a saying. And so we never have a discussion amongst us, what will be ultimately the most profitable way we can do something. It's about what's the best way. And it was Jay Arisman who pushed two things right from the very beginning. And he's really a brilliant individual, and folks who come in contact with him really enjoy his breadth of knowledge about world whiskey. And that helps center New Riff because we're part of the global supply chain, and we want to be one of the great small distilleries of the world. But two things were paramount to Jay, and he taught them to the rest of us. And that was the bottled and bond was the original from 1897, was the original federal law, original purity law of the United States. And it was worth joining a movement. We didn't initiate it, but we joined a movement to resurrect the concept of bottled and bond as that stamp of quality and purity. And the second thing was non-chill filtration. And your listeners, probably are on board, with both of those things. So we never gave any thought to releasing any whiskey before at least 4 years and never under 100 proof. And that's a mantra we'll continue, and we'll never chill filter any of the whiskeys. And that's just our opening salvo. I mean, we're still in a very young distillery. We're in our 6th year. I guess actually we're technically in our 7th year. And I mean, we just have a long way to go with a lot more age expressions, but those are our minimum standards. They're not our maximum where we're headed.
Of course. Right. And what's so interesting and exciting about what you all are doing too is that it's not just standard run of the mill. We're releasing this bourbon. We're releasing this rye. Here's a single barrel. Here's a barrel proof. You're actually really being very methodical and different in the way that you are creating some of your products. The Balboa rye, the peated bourbons, the backsetters that came out this year as well. Was that something that you always kind of had in mind, or did that come about organically with your master distiller and with the team?
Absolutely organically. Our desire is we never want to be Baskin and Robbins 31 flavors. Some distilleries want to do that, and that's fine, and more power to them. We are always cognizant of our position in the great tradition of Kentucky whiskey and sour mash whiskey that came before us. We're a new riff on an old tradition, that we feel that's real to us. And so we want to do thoughtful, carefully considered, methodical is a good word. Thank you. It's not a negative word at all.
No, of course.
Methodical innovations. They need to be in the great tradition. They can't be way far outside. We're not interested in making bubblegum bourbon. Of course, it can be legal anyway. You get my point. These need to be thoughtful, traditional extensions and we hope they're all successful, but at the minimum, they will advance our knowledge of whiskey making and put a little footnote out there for folks like you, about what is possible. Backsetter is just a great example.
Yeah.
And Backsetter happened by serendipity, by a mistake, basically. Not a mistake, but accidentally. Sure. Because, what it is actually pretty neat because, how much innovation, where can you innovate when, essentially, what's in a mash bill and what's in your process and what it makes sour mash. Of course. It's pretty simple. It's basic. Yeah. And the federal laws govern it, what you can say about it and put on the label. And I'm glad for all of that. It protects all of us. But, Backsetters came about because we're a large distillery. We make up to 8,000 barrels a year, but we're small enough that we're changing the mash bills in the distillery almost on a day-to-day basis. So we might make rye, today, and tomorrow make bourbon and so forth. So we did have a project where we made some peated whiskey, 100% peated, malted barley. Yeah. And that project exists, and there are some barrels of that out there, and we're not talking about it. But, if you think logically, it had to come from somewhere. So we did that, and we did that 4 years ago or more. And when the guys were tasting the bourbon and the rye from the day after we made a peated malted barley whiskey, right, they caught it in the tasting process because we taste every single barrel and every lot, with our entire tasting panel. And they all caught it, and they thought it was notable enough. They went back, looked at the records, and found out what had happened. Well, it had the malted barley, the peated malted barley, had dramatically changed the backset going into our standard bourbon and rye recipes, mash bills that day. Right. And that was so interesting because it added a nuance. And the other thing that's interesting about it is it can still be called bourbon and still be called rye. Absolutely. We're following all the rules. Yeah. But I'm not sure anyone had ever used backset as a way to manipulate, maybe that's the wrong word, influence what goes into a mash bill, what goes into a barrel, and still is traditionally called and can be named legally bourbon and rye. That's very thoughtful, even if it was an accidental innovation and they've picked it up, and we're going to repeat it. We're that's great. Deliberately going to make it again, and probably we'll do some other interesting things with Backset because it's a new tool we have found. That's the kind of stuff that excites us too, in addition to making every day great bourbon and great rye.
Going into this production as well, did you have kind of an idea of what you wanted the flavor profile to be on New Riff? Just even just the standard bottled and bond, just as a general kind of general marker for what you would want people to experience when you tasted it.
Yeah, great question. Great thread. First of all, disclaimer. I am not a distiller, and I have tremendous respect for distillers.
Sure, of course.
And I don't even have a particularly good palate. I own the Party Source, the largest store in the country. Sold a gazillion bottles of wine, and I could never be a very good wine taster. I knew what was good, I knew what was bad. I'm the same way, and I admire people with great palates. So Ken, the owner, did not know. What Ken knew was if he put an amazing team together and gave them the resources and the freedom and the vision to work every day to be a great small distillery of the world.
Right.
That neat things were going to happen, but I didn't know what those neat things were. And that's, you know, in management, you know, I don't want to get away from whiskey, but
sure,
that's so important today. And it's so throttled back in so much of corporate America, you know, that innovation and that the pride and belonging and making something and working as a team for a goal. Anyway, great group of people. What happened in our creation story, if you want to call it that, is a couple of things happened. And again, by accident or serendipity. I knew that if I went out and hired, say, a master, not a master, but a head distiller, like that was, say, the assistant distiller at Maker's Mark, which is the traditional approach if you're going to open a big distillery, that what would end up happening is I'd end up with Maker's Mark North. Okay, we'd be making a really good weeded, you know, bourbon.
Right.
Because it's the nature of the beast. You do this for 20, 30 years, your entire career, you make pretty much the same stuff. I went out and I recruited people from craft brewing who understood fermentation, and they understood the whole process of making interesting craft beers and experimenting and some thoughtful innovation. And then I knew I needed a master distiller to do the training. And serendipity was that Larry Ebersol, who had been the head distiller for 25 years at Seagram's in Lawrenceburg, which is only 25 miles, 30 miles from us.
Right.
Had just retired and was looking for some consulting. And Larry is the greatest master distiller that a lot of people have never heard of because he invented the famous 95-5 rye recipe which is now MGP, but it was Seagram's when he did it.
Right.
That is all over the place and is in so many different bottles, as you know. So Larry had retired from Seagram's, and he's a brilliant guy and a brilliant distiller. Starting his consulting career, we were his first client, and we totally bonded with Larry. He loved the idea of getting really smart people that knew fermentation from the brewing industry, and that he would train them, and that's exactly what happened. Well, Larry's a rye guy.
Sorry,
and we became rye guys, and we like it, and so it fit perfectly.
Sure.
So he brought this whole, because rye, as you know, is the most difficult grain to deal with. It's an SOB.
Absolutely.
Sticky and messy, and a lot of distilleries don't want to fool with it. It's hard to deal with. It's unforgiving. Larry brought his black arts of distilling rye with him to New Riff, and we've all bonded, no pun intended, over that, or maybe it was intended. And
sure,
it's a love affair. If you want to get right down to it, I don't want to embarrass Larry or Brian Sprance, our head distiller, or Jay Harrisman or anyone, but it really is a great bromance because he found a willing group of younger folks to teach, and they lapped it up, and we honor and cherish him. So that's really the answer of how we became such a high rye distillery, and we will remain that into the future. I really think not just the high rye bourbon, but I think rye in general is a great niche for New Riff to go for. There's a number of good distilleries, we'd probably agree on most of them, that are making some dynamite bourbon. Big boys too, the Buffalo Traces and the Four Roses of the world, for sure, Heaven Hill. But not that many people are as laser focused on rye. And so it gives us a chance to be a major player, a top 2 or 3 in time in a burgeoning, growing category. And it's America's whiskey. And so we're excited about that.
I had to, because we were talking about the rye, I had to pour a little bit of the Balboa. I don't have a whole lot of it left, but I had to pour it. I had to pour a little bit of it so we could talk about this, because this has been one of my favorite experiments that I've seen from you all. As much as I love the Backsetter, it feels like the Balboa is just so special. And it was, for anybody who is not in the know, it was the 2019 special release from New Riff. How did this product come to be? What was the kind of the process of creativity behind this? Because this is something that it feels like, unless you know what Balboa even is, you would have no idea that this is something that could be in the world, something that could actually exist. So how did you all kind of stumble upon Balboa Rye?
Okay. In this case, it's probably not stumbling, but it's Jay Harrisman being very thoughtful.
Sure.
Jay is a historian, a local historian and a historian of whiskey, as well as a tremendous palate and tremendous person who understands, Japanese whiskey and Scotch whiskey and cognac and so forth. So he brings a very broad perspective, and it's fantastic. And Jay, what your listeners need to know, maybe not all of them do, is that Balboa is an heirloom rye.
Right.
Okay, it was a cover crop developed in the 20s, maybe 30s. It's pretty sketchy, the information, and it was used as a cover crop and pretty much throughout the Midwest and in Minnesota and so forth. So, but it pretty much died out with the bioengineered, higher yield, grains that supplanted all these heirloom grains. Pretty much died out, but Jay knew about it, and he knows, and he tracked down some, and it turned out that the Fogg farm that we deal with in Indiana, which also supplies corn for Roses, for instance, a great family farm, about 80 miles from us, had a patch of the Balboa, and they were just using it as cover crop. They didn't care about it.
Sure.
But there aren't many of them around, and Jay tracked it down, and he thought, well, he talked us into it and said, hey, why don't we try it? We've got a mill and we can deal with it. And we said, sure, let's go for it. Well, it turned out to be pretty sensational. I agree with you, by the way. I think the Backsetters are a really interesting project. And
absolutely,
maybe in a couple more years, they might come together just a little bit more, but they're good. Ooh. But they're not there.
Yeah.
The Balboa at 4 years old is there. And even older, it's hard to think about it. So we're working on it. We found do you have time for a quick story about the Balboa?
Absolutely. No, by all means, take all the time you want.
Here's a story that is cute, and it's especially for someone who appreciates, that this is a really interesting product that's going to have legs, because we've made more of it, and we may do other things with Balboa.
Sure.
Become even more central to New Riff as time goes on. Certainly there are discussions about that. But our friend in Indiana who was making it, we made it for, I forget how many years, a couple of years, maybe 3 years. Each year he grew more for us, and we made more, thankfully. So there'll be more Balboa coming.
That's fantastic.
Always very limited. But a year ago, we went back to get the largest crop ever of Balboa, and he called and talked to Jay, and he said, Jay, I don't know how to tell you this. He said, the boys, he's out there in Indiana, rural Indiana, the boys went out, and when they, we had X number of acres, I don't know how many. Let's say it's 10 acres, 15 acres, doesn't matter. And they went out and they harvested the Balboa, and they still had a couple hours left in the day. And in the same, truck, they harvested, a couple other acres of generic rye, and it all got mixed.
Oh.
Not only did we not have the Balboa that year, there's no grain for seed.
Wow.
The story has a happy ending in the works. We became known. We released the Balboa. It got into a number of publications, and podcasts and so forth.
Right.
How this happened, I don't know. Some farmer in an even more rural area of Tennessee called our general line, just leave a message line, and goes, "Oh, I heard you guys." I can't do the accent. I heard you guys got the Balboa. He said, "I got a bunch of Balboa. I've never even sold it to anybody. Would you guys be interested? It's all the way down here in, ex-Tennessee." We bought some. We've trucked it in. This happened recently, last month. Looks great. Smells, tastes, looks like it's going to be good. And it looks like saved ourselves. And we're going to use some of it for seed, and we'll continue to buy it from the gentleman in Tennessee, and we're going to make a lot more Balboa. But
that's fantastic.
For 6 or 8 months, we thought we made a really fantastic product that really may have great reputational legs. When this becomes 8 years old or whatever.
Oh,
and
man.
it could really, be one of those signature New Riff products, and boom, all the boys went out and they, sorry.
So one of the things, and the conversation about Balboa Rye could go on forever because just A, how much I love it, and B, it's so exciting to hear that there's going to be more of it in the future. I think that is just super, super exciting. I know that our listeners are going to be very excited about that. But I have to ask too, just out of pure curiosity, have you had a favorite special release that New Riff has put out? Is there anything that kind of has piqued your interest more than anything else?
I'm probably supposed to be, like a parent that treats all their children equally, but that's not realistic. I personally, first of all, it's palate and taste and so forth. I think we make a lot of really good products. I am rye-centric. I think we have a real shot at being, and I'm not saying we're going to be. I think we have a shot at being, the best or nearly the best rye producer in the United States. We really are focused. We got a great teacher master who taught us the black arts, and our guys love it. And continuing with that, I have to say that at this point in time, the Balboa is my personal favorite, and we'll see. I would hope that we'll find some other things. I know we've got some pretty amazing things that I'm not allowed to talk about in the barrel. I can say that in addition to that, I love a product that's going to come out in the spring that you may know something about, which is our 100% malted rye.
Yes.
And I think the 100% malted rye and the Balboa rye, but there's a theme there. There's a rye theme coming. Sure. And I think you're going to find New Riff as the years go on. People are going to say things like, they make really good bourbon. They make awesome. And then maybe will be what happens. We'll see what guys like you decide about it.
Oh, of course. Well, what's funny too, and I'll give a special shout out to one of our listeners. His name's Ian, and he is a diehard New Riff fan. I mean, if I could point to somebody who preaches the gospel of New Riff, it's Ian, and he is just all about what you guys do and loves your products and just he's kind of a super fan, I guess. Yeah. So I know that he's going to be really excited to hear all of this too. And one thing I want to touch on as well, you guys are doing such great things at 4 years old. And this is a conversation that I've had with the folks at Wilderness Trail too, about how, their products are so good at 4 years old as well. I understand that there's that mindset of we have to put out a product eventually that's going to be 6 years old, 8 years old, eventually 12 years old as well. But at the same time, if your core product is so solid at 4 years old, is there really a need to keep stepping it up in age? So as you kind of see these products getting older, these barrels getting older, 2, 4, 10 years down the line, will there still be kind of a core 4-year-old bourbon, or will the brand itself evolve, the product itself evolve to become a higher age stated product when it hits the shelves?
Well, again, an extremely thoughtful thread of conversation, and
sure,
and it's one that I'm intimately involved continuously, because this is strategic planning 101
of course,
for us.
And
where are we going? How do we become a great small distillery as well? So without a short answer is there will always be, an entry level bottled and bond product. And, I think that's very important. It's important for competitive reasons. And, I will say that I have no intentions of raising the price. I think, for years and years and years, I think it's properly priced. And ultimately, we need to compete against, the global companies as all this amazing, I call it a tsunami of whiskey comes to market because they will make supply equal demand.
Of
That's
course.
capitalism in a good way at work.
Yeah.
And so we have to figure out we're little old New Riff. We're not so little, but we're little compared to them. Fits into the big scheme of things. And I think one of the ways is to have a high quality, but very well positioned and priced product to consider, next to the Four Roses or a Buffalo Trace. And because it's 100 proof and non-chill filtered and it's only $5 more, be a very good value. So we will continue to have it. And the other part of the answer is, but clearly we are extremely interested in having older products and significant quantities of older products. It's our expansion and growth as we have the budget and to do it. And every year we make more product. It's not particularly to make a lot more 4-year-old. It's to have a lot more to become older. So right now we're putting away a third of everything we make to be older. And in time, I want that to grow so that it becomes even more older product because we all know that although you can get to the point where there's too much wood and it's a diminishing returns, and too concentrated and too thick and so forth. But I do think that up to 8 and 10, I think 10 is kind of a sweet spot. Very generally, there's so much climatic differences and so forth. But that matters to become one of the great small distilleries in the world, and those products are a superior product to a 4-year-old, and they each have their place in the system. And we want to inhabit increasingly the older products. When that 100% malted rye comes out, it's going to have a 6-year age statement on it.
Wow. Okay.
So we're constantly going to get older, but we'll keep the entry level at all times. And the last thing to say about that is, and again, it's heretical. It's absolutely heretical in the industry. We are with the Angel share and evaporation. Of course, you have fewer bottles of a 10-year-old barrel than a 4-year-old. Of course, all your listeners know that. But so there has to be a price differential. But our mantra is we don't expect any greater return on a 10-year-old barrel than on a 4-year-old barrel. Has to be higher price because there's fewer bottles.
Sure.
But we're not looking for a percentage return because we've had it around 6 more years.
Right.
If we get X thousands of dollars when we sell, in gross profit from a barrel, we want to keep that. And that's a way that we want to run counter to this. We don't like triple-digit bottles of bourbon and rye. I'm opposed to it. And I think there's a greed factor going on. And it's also, it takes too many bottles and puts them out of the hands of people that will really appreciate them. So we want to be very democratic with a small d and be a distillery that's high quality, but doesn't forget, so to speak, where you came from and who your loyal followers like Ian and so forth. We're always from year one. And so, I'd like to see a 10-year-old product, be $60 or $70. And
sure.
But, we'll see how that works out. But I think that's an important part of who New Riff is. And it's the independence, that we're not in this just to make as much money as we can, but to make a great whiskey and to get it out to the right people to drink it and not just hoard it and show it off and so forth.
On the topic of pricing too, and this might be a little bit off topic, but I think it's important for us to talk about as well. When considering what you were going to place the price at for New Riff, was there any consideration as to how the secondary market might respond, or what certain whiskeys at this entry level position or price might be? I mean, were you thinking of that at all when pricing the initial small batch bottle and bond?
The answer is no.
Sure.
As a retailer for all those years, I clearly had an advantage when I, look at our brand architecture and how we're going to price, because I know exactly where things need to fall. And, clearly we don't have the economies of scale, and we're not going to be, at a Jim Beam price and so forth. And we don't want to, but we don't want to be too expensive either. And we want to live within our means and hit our budgets and, pay our bills. But our objectives aren't tremendously beyond that. Inevitably, I mean, it's happening right now. I mean, it happened with OKI, but it's happening even with a Balboa, for instance.
Yeah.
These things are going triple digits, but it's not from us, and we have no control over it.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And I apologize. I didn't mean to insinuate
No,
that maybe you had any.
I just say that we're not influenced that way. We'll never look. I will never look, as long as I'm running the show, we will never price based on what the market will bear. I'm opposed to it. And actually, I think that's the leadership in that comes from people like Buffalo Trace from Sazerac, from Four Roses. They don't do it either.
Yeah.
They're very fair. You can't get the bottles, and they instantly crazy expensive on the secondary market. And some retailers, do all kinds of things with pricing and so forth. But they didn't do it. And they're very careful about that. So they set a very good leadership tone that we're going to follow.
It's really interesting to me to hear that tone of conversation between distilleries, right? And I know that we're kind of conditioned to think, well, it's us versus them. We have to only fight for ourselves. But I think in the bourbon world, in the bourbon market, it's not like that. And that's very evident, especially when you look at history and, specifically something like the Heaven Hill fire in the mid-90s. All of the distilleries that came to their aid and provided whiskey so that they could just continue to operate and make a profit. How has your relationship looked with other distilleries since coming to market? I mean, have you all been able to kind of be friendly competitors, or and I don't mean to pry too much to the point where it's, you can't talk about it, but I am genuinely curious if, you have, found kind of a place amongst the other distilleries where you're aware of each other's existence, you accept each other's existence, and you kind of move on from there. So what's that kind of been like for you?
Yeah, well, it's again a very interesting question, but I think the answer is pretty unequivocal. And part of this, let's be honest, can be framed by the fact that demand is so high. So there's enough to go around. Everybody's doing well.
Sure.
Everybody's doing well. And things could change when that massive tsunami comes of whiskey and supply equals demand. But I think it'll change some, but I don't think it'll change completely. I will say that right now, there is a tremendous spirit of cooperation and frequently very high mutual respect. I mean, it certainly goes from us to the global companies. I think they make dynamite whiskey, and they price it very fairly. And I have tremendous respect for, some names I've already mentioned, and what they're doing in the marketplace. If I have any problem and if there's any concern that I have, it's with craft distilleries, and not all by any means. But there are clearly some people getting into the business, and you see it all the time, and pricing things in a crazy fashion and putting 2-year-olds out there at $80 and so forth, a fancy bottle, and not being clear about the origin, not being transparent. So my beef is with smaller distilleries that can muck up the marketplace. It is absolutely not with the big boys that I think have a wonderful approach to the market, have a long view, and have provided some great leadership. So,
and that I was genuinely hoping that was going to be the response. I wasn't.
Now, we're not necessarily on too many of their radars. We're too small. I mean, we're a big little distillery. No, I think we're actually pretty well known by the big boys, and I think they appreciate that there's someone coming who says good, who sets a good tone for the industry too, and I think there's a lot of mutual respect. But it's a good. We have the Kentucky Distillers Association. It's an extremely well-run. Eric Gregory. They run a very good organization. They're a model for the whole country, in not just in our industry, but other industries. And folks really do cooperate very, very well. And the big global companies do not throw their weight around.
Sure.
There's a lot of respect amongst even smaller distilleries and the big distilleries.
What did the being added to and getting able to be a part of the craft trail mean for you all? The Kentucky Bourbon Craft Trail. I think that's or Craft Bourbon Trail. I can't remember the exact.
Yeah, I think it's Craft Bourbon Trail. But
I think that's right too. But what does that mean for you all? Was that a big step? Was that just something that you kind of felt like was, just going through the motions, or what was that thought process for you all?
In all honesty, I don't think it's a big step. If we had decided, and we could have been, to be on what we call the big trail, that would be a big step because it would change a lot of things operationally. We didn't do it deliberately because we really don't want busloads of people that just want to get their passport stamped. And I'm not being mean to anyone. I'm a tremendous booster for Kentucky tourism and what the Bourbon Trail is doing, but it would overwhelm us, and we couldn't give the quality of tour that we want to, so forth. So, but I think the craft trail is, it's an not automatic, but semi-automatic admission. And it's a great association. But I think most of us on the craft trail, we do a lot of regional,
right.
Our exposure is more regional and more on our own, rather than I'm helping someone down in Paducah or Nicholasville or something like that.
I've been kicking this idea around for a while, and it's just something that I really want to pursue eventually. But doing a series where we take a month and we just talk to that one region on the craft trail, and doing however many weeks there are, or maybe however many episodes we can fit into that period of time. And I think it would be really interesting to be able to sit down, with everyone, and maybe even it's a big panel where everybody comes together and we all talk about, each region and the meaningfulness behind the craft trail too, because I think that there's this kind of notion that the craft trail is the baby brother to the bourbon trail.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't think that's entirely warranted or entirely fair, because like New Riff, like these other distilleries they're on the trail. I apologize for not being I can't recall any at the moment, but I just don't think that it's fair to some of these distilleries that are producing at such a high volume and at such a high quality as well, to assume that they are below the bourbon trail in any way. And this all goes back to, discussing how you all are dealing with other distilleries and how you are working with them or, against them or anything. But it is, again, nice to hear that there is camaraderie between the distilleries, between the companies. So I look forward to what you all are going to be doing in the future. And I have to ask you as well, this is something that actually I reached out to Ian specifically and I said, is there anything you want me to ask Ken? And I want to get his question right. Let me pull it up real quick. But he asked, what are you looking forward to with the brand? What are you the most excited about with the future of New Riff?
It gets back to what we've covered a lot, which is really, it ultimately is when we have 10 and 12-year-old whiskey.
Sure.
And we're maturing as a whiskey company, to have those older stocks and to be able to really do some interesting, special tours with people like yourself and Ian, where we're able to sit down and talk about, the 4-year-old and how it's aged and become 10 at this point, or 12, or, how the backsetter was really great, or, when it was 7, but it went over the hill, just those, whatever it turns out to be. And about the stories of, along the way of somebody, which are true stories, or, how we found our water source, which is, just a great, almost accidental kind of thing. But I think it's the maturing of the distillery that I look forward to. And it's interesting, again, I go back to where we started, which is distilling as a gift to the next generation. I mean, I hope to be on the earth, when all these things transpire, but I won't be running New Riff at that point.
Sure.
It will be in other, I'm busy. I've got a great young team, and I think I'm a decent mentor to them, and they'll be running the company, and I think they'll be doing it with the same kind of values, going forward. So that's what I look forward to is the years going by. I'm not wishing them to disappear. We're doing well, and it's exciting. And every day's, the meetings that we have talking about strategy and about Balboa and Baltic Rye and, what's going to be in the Whiskey Club next year. That's a lot of fun. I enjoy all the time that's passing, but it will be interesting to be in a position where we can look back 10, 12, 15 years, I'd say 12, 15, even 20 years, and look back and think about where we've come from and what we've accomplished, and see it in the whiskey, and sit down with someone like yourself and Ian and do a, long comparison, of 10 years of, some New Riffs, and seeing how things have matured and tell the stories. That's what
that would be incredible.
That'll be fun.
And now I'm looking forward to it too.
Well, it'll happen. You're young. It'll happen.
Two questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Yes, sir.
This might be purely because of what's sitting over your shoulder, but do you have a favorite Harry Potter book?
They're not my Harry Potter books. So
I didn't think they were, but I had to ask.
I haven't read one. I'm always going to be honest.
Fair enough. I got a little excited because I saw him over there, and I was like, oh, maybe I should ask him. And then last but not least, I want to ask you, and this is purely out of curiosity again, do you have a favorite barrel at the distillery right now that's sitting in a rick house that you kind of come back to every now and then? But you tap it a little bit for yourself and nobody else?
Yeah. I do not. I'm back to that, you're talking, but I will tell you that Jay Arisman does.
That's awesome.
France does. Now, I don't think that they're going to reveal any of that.
Oh, of course.
They do. And
that's fair enough. Well, Ken, thank you so much for for sitting down with me. I really have appreciated your time.
It was a great conversation. It was like having a buddy in my room, and you're really good at this, and I enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. And that's what we're here for. It's just about, being able to have conversations about not just, what inspires you and what you're looking forward to, but just, this is the open space to allow people to sit down and tell their story. Yeah. And I really appreciate you being open and honest with me, Ken. And this has been
a good conversation. And this is the way the brand gets built over years and years and years, and wonderful conversations like this after each other.
Of course, and we're super excited to see where New Riff is going over the next few years as well. Everybody go check out New Riff on not just social media, but also go visit the distillery. You absolutely need to. I'm going to be doing it here in a few weeks. So, and I'm really looking forward to it. But again, thank you, Ken.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks once again to Ken for sitting down with me for that interview. It got me in the mood for some New Riff. You want some New Riff, Swan?
Yeah.
If you're done with your Sam Houston over there, highfalutin, big talking, bourbon drinking man.
Yes.
How about 113 proof pick from their one of their distillers? Don't break my stuff, Swan. Everything's very delicate in here,
including my feelings. Don't yell at me.
Sorry, you can break whatever you want to. I'm sorry.
I plan on it.
So I've had this long-standing theory that 113 proof, at least,
it's the sweet spot.
It's the best proof for New Riff picks, or single barrels, rather. And I was out of my 113 proofer, and when we went to the distillery, I saw that they had a pick that was 113 proof, and I was like, "You're coming home with me."
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to actually review this. I mean, we'll just taste it, of course.
Yeah. So. I'll be honest. I had a ton of fun visiting their distillery.
I did too.
And
I had a great time.
And I got home and I was like looking through the little goodie bag they gave us, and I was like, all the normal stuff, like, oh, a really nice glass, some stickers, a coaster, a business card. And then I was like, what's in this white bag? Malted milk balls.
Oh, yes.
I ate the entire thing in one sitting. They were like, I felt like the vacuum cleaner from Teletubbies, just inhaling food.
Such a niche reference.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that plenty of people are going to get it, but still, like...
Yeah, I mean...
Anybody who doesn't understand it, I apologize on behalf of Swan.
It's like the mechanical Snuffleupagus. I mean, it's fantastic.
# Snuffy Squad.
Yeah. So, they're so good. I'm tempted to go back just to buy them. Can I get them in bulk? Can I get 4 pounds?
The malted milk balls?
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
They're so good.
What if it's
Whoppers
on
ain't got nothing on them.
Hey, you take that back. I love Whoppers.
They're fine. They're fine.
I bought so much candy for Halloween. I bought way too much candy for Halloween.
I'm proud of myself. I had no candy for Halloween.
Well, I mean, I bought it for trick-or-treaters.
Oh, okay.
But I bought too much. And so now we just have cavity inducers all around our house.
That's fair. That's fair. Standard New Riff, man.
It's so good.
Just quality.
It's a great nose. It just does not smell like it's 4 years old.
No.
I think it's 4 years old.
No, and they were going over how they're very meticulous with their grain selection.
Wait, no, that's not it. It's over here. Oh, it's 4.5 years old.
Ooh.
It's almost, I mean, it's getting close to having been 5. Distilled 10/5/15, bottled 7/29/20.
Nice.
So, there you go. Yeah, you were talking about how they selected their grains.
Yeah, they're very meticulous.
Yeah.
And they're big on barrels. They actually use 2 different companies. I learned a lot. It's very cool.
Also, their distillation process as well.
Oh, yeah. They do 1 distillation per barrel, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is just nuts.
Yeah, and it's no wonder that they wind up with such a varying degree of flavor profiles.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and the strange part was like, at one point we even asked them, because knowing they use 2 different barrels, we were like, can you go back and look, because we're really between these 2, and I'm sure they've got to be different barrels, exact same barrel company.
Yeah, uh-huh.
It's insane.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that New Riff truly is one of the more unique single barrel programs out there.
Yeah.
Even if you get just an off-the-shelf single barrel, it's going to be wildly different from another pick that you've had. Mm-hmm. And even from... Here's what always kind of trips me up about this. Not always, because it's new information. I can't imagine that it's an easy job batching products when you've got something different coming off the still basically every time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like their bottled and bond, I feel like has been consistent, but I don't know what their process might look like. I'm sure it's just trial and error,
Yeah.
but then again, that's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, I was reading something the other day that like, so you've heard of Dewar's, right?
Well, yeah.
Whiskey.
Yeah.
Apparently, they have somewhere between like 20 and 40 different distilleries that they source from. Like, it's an insane amount. But I'm sure they get very consistent product for majority of them. New Riff's just doing that in-house.
Oh, yeah.
Which is nuts to me. Because their product is crazy consistent on just their regular bottled and bond.
Yeah, for sure. I just had a sip of this. It's hotter than I remembered. Ha! Woo!
That's good, though.
It's really good.
Clears your sinuses, that's for sure.
It does indeed. Well, we'll drink on that as we kind of wrap up the rest of the episode. Do you want to talk about tips and bits?
Tips and bits.
Let's
I didn't
talk-
bring anything. Hold on.
Sure you did. You got to try something for the first time on Friday.
Lee's Famous Chicken.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh.
We were leaving New Riff. We were leaving New Riff. And Swan's like, we got to get something to eat. I was like, there's a McDonald's over there. Is that okay? And you're like, I'm not picky. And I go, okay. So we go, and I look right next to, and by the way, this is like our tips and bits. This isn't just yours. Lee's is like my favorite chicken place. And every Lee's in Lexington is out of business. There were 3 that were perfectly placed around the city.
Equidistant chicken.
Just about.
Yeah.
And every freaking one of them closed down. I was so mad. I was so mad about it. And so we're driving up to McDonald's. I look to the left of it, and all I see is like the word like chicken on the side of the building. And I was like, Swan, we're not getting McDonald's anymore.
Listen, man, it was crazy. So I always knew Lee's existed. I just never went. No, it's just
Yeah,
there.
of course.
It's there.
Yeah.
And then you tell me that you're like, you've got to have Lee's. And within like a week, my new manager at Total Wine was just like, have you had Lee's before? And I was like, oh, God, here we go. And he said something to the effect of, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. And I told him I was going to Lee's.
feeling for somebody who's just met you to put on you.
Yeah. And I don't know. I told him I was going to Lee's. He's like, you got to get the sweet tea, get this, and get this. And I'm like, gosh, man, this place has a very underground following. This is intense.
It's the best, though.
I will say it held up, man.
You
It held up.
Yeah, you seemed like you were pretty impressed with it.
Yeah, like even you could tell that some of the stuff had not been cooked within the last 20 minutes. It had been hanging out for a little bit.
It still tasted great.
Still great.
Didn't even matter.
Hard to beat.
Didn't even matter.
Yeah.
We're rewatching Letterkenny right now.
It's so good, man.
So funny.
I will say Letterkenny is one of those shows. It is hard to watch consecutive episodes for like, if you watch like 5 of them, your brain's melted.
You you do have to take a break.
It's a lot.
You definitely have to take a break.
Unless you're just hammered. And then I'll be honest, it's the best thing in the world. It's just a constant laugh fest for like 4 hours.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Let's see. Ooh, I wrapped up my spooky movie season on what is it? Like Thursday or Friday night? I can't remember exactly. With It Chapter 2 and Alien. And one of those movies, real good. The other one, just fine. I'll let you figure out which one.
Oh, I already got it. Yeah. I already got it.
I'm already sad that Halloween season's over.
No one is putting parameters on your ability to watch that. You can watch spooky movies all the time.
I just feel like I've lost the passion. I've lost the drive.
That's fair.
I don't have the energy or the desire for it anymore.
So are you one of those people that's already like, this is Christmas, or is it all about Thanksgiving for you?
No, I need that break in between Halloween and Christmas.
I don't. I put my Christmas tree up today.
I can't do it, man. Did you really though?
It's not decorated yet, but I got it. I put
It's
it up
there. You're gonna come home and Gus is gonna have torn it down.
Plastic ornaments. I've thought this through.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Kitten's worst nightmare.
It won't break.
No, I need that break before the onslaught of Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I lump, oddly enough, it's not a big holiday, but I kind of lump Halloween in with the holiday season because it is kind of like that transition into it. Like you start out kind of small, you get not a little bit, you get significantly bigger, and then there's the one at the end that's just like just huge and massive, and everybody goes all out for it and everything. And I like the crescendo into Christmas. You know, maybe you'll get a couple of flakes of snow during November. It's cold, but it's not so cold that you don't want to go and do stuff. And it's different now, but you know, it used to be that you weren't bombarded with Christmas commercials.
Yeah.
And
radio stations are already playing Christmas music now.
Mix 94.5.
Yeah, it's insane.
Are they still Mix? I don't know. It doesn't
There's
matter.
something. Yeah.
Who cares?
No one listens to them unless it's like December 20th through the 25th. Unless you just really want to hear Mariah Carey.
Oh, I think I came out last year without having heard All I Want for Christmas Is You once. Maybe one time.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been at the tail end of it. But yeah, I didn't not a fan of that song.
You did good. That's impressive.
I like those alternative Christmas playlists or alt Christmas albums.
Yeah.
Like She and Him, the Zoe Deschanel and M Ward collaboration. I really like their Christmas album. John Legend has a really good one too that came out last year.
That's fair. That's fair.
Absolutely. Michael Bublé. The boobs.
Mr. Bubble. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tips and bits this week. Give it time before you get into Christmas. Please.
Or don't.
Or here's another tip and or bit. Stop watching Criminal Minds, Swan.
I just started season 4 today. Today.
We need to get a social campaign going to get Swan to stop watching Criminal Minds.
Oh, man. I don't know what I'm getting out of this. That's the worst part about it.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough.
I don't know, like once every 6 episodes, I was like, wow, that was just really sucked me in. I had a good time.
Oh, I thought you were going to end with that just really sucked.
No, that's the other 5. Yeah. I'm going to get through it.
Terrific. Anyway. Hashtag stop. I got to work on the hashtag for this.
This is going to be a long one.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll get there, though. Anyway, thank you all so much for making it through this episode. It was a little bit longer with the interview and everything, but I like having a bit of a longer episode every now and then. We got stuff we got to do. And we appreciate everybody for sticking around through it. You can follow up with us on social media if you'd like to do that. Swan, where can people find you on the social medias?
I'm at Instagram at SwanTBF.
You are. I am at PRitter1492 on all social media platforms. You can find the show at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review on the iTunes podcast app if that is where you listen to the show. There's also other ways to leave us little notes and reviews if you feel so inclined to do so. And if you do leave us a nice little note or a review, we will actually read it out here on the show. I don't think that we have a new one this week. Let me double check real quick, make sure nothing's changed in the past couple of... Nope, nothing's changed. We do not have a new review. But if you do review the show, it really helps it get up in the iTunes podcast app. It works with that algorithm. I don't truly know how all that works, but apparently it does. So get on it, or don't. We appreciate people who listen in general. You find all of our apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com. Shirts, sweatshirts, socks, maybe? I think some shoes. I don't know. There's logos. There's, cute, cool shirts. I'm really selling it, aren't I? There's skateboards.
Can I get a Tim Bip Santa hat?
Oh, freaking A. I don't know. I need to find out. You're going to come over to the house one day dressed as Santa Claus.
Yes.
And you're going to make my baby cry.
Yes. That's the plan.
You remember last week how I said I had the thought that I should dress up as Santa?
Yes.
Instead, it's going to be Uncle Swan.
Yeah, I'm going to come over. She's going to sit in my lap, and I'm like, instead of what do you want for Christmas, it's like, what's your tips and bits this week?
What have you been drinking recently? Oh, my goodness. You can become a part of our Facebook group, facebook.com. Search for This Is My Bourbon Group. You can leave us a voicemail for our oft-neglected, but sometimes brought up, barrel ring segment, where people leave us a little note, a little voicemail. We listen to it, respond to it on air, and maybe we'll ask you people, and you leave us a voicemail for next week. What is your favorite New Riff expression?
That's a good one.
Yeah. What are you most excited about with New Riff, too, if anything? Oh, goodness. What else do we have here, Swanee? Live streams Thursday nights. Not entirely sure what that's going to look like just at the moment, but I will be back this week and then every other week thereafter for a while. And last but not least, patreon.com/MyBourbonPodcast is where you can become a patron of the show for as little as $1 a month. And for $5 a month, you get all of the bonus content that comes out every week, including the pregame chats and the last call, which is going to be starting up probably after the first of the year again. That's always a really fun time that we get to have, wrapping up the show, goofing around a little bit more, going and meeting weird bartenders.
Sorry, I just took a drink.
Long pause. A little bit of dead air there. I think the music might be playing under us at this point. I don't know.
It's all good. It's all good. Yes, strange bartenders. We love them.
the good stuff. Jeez. Anyway, patreon.com/MyBourbonPodcast. That does it for this week's episode. We'll see you all next week for another. I don't know what we're doing next week.
We never do. We just wing it.
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm. We always just do it on the fly. Like birds do. Like you.
Yeah.
Sure. Anyway, see y'all next week. Have a good week. I never tell you people that, but have a good week. We'll see you next time. But until then, I'm Perry.
And I'm Swan.
And this is My Bourbon Podcast.